yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, let me thank the gentleman from Florida for his opening and congratulate him on his new chairmanship. I hope that there will be occasions that we can work together on issues that will advance the cause of human rights and promote stability in the world, but unfortunately, today is not one of those occasions. Mr. Speaker, of all the ways that Republicans have shown this country how messed up and backwards their priorities are, I have to say that this bill that we're debating today to sanction the International Criminal Court, the ICC, this really takes the cake. We have a natural disaster unfolding in California right this second as 100,000 people are fleeing a climate change-driven fire that's burning up entire neighborhoods. We have a gun violence epidemic as we see massacres in our school nearly every single day. Families are unable to make ends meet because they're being ripped off by billionaire corporations who don't care about anything but the bottom line. There's over 40 million hungry people in this country who don't know where their next meal is going to come from. 40 million hungry people in the richest country on earth. All those challenges, and this is what the out-of-touch, elitist, billionaire Republican Party wants to waste time on, sanctioning the ICC. I actually listened to people in my district, Mr. Speaker, and I asked them what they want Congress to work on. Not once, never ever have I heard them talk about sanctioning the ICC as one of their priorities. They talk about their bills. They talk about health care costs. The farmers in my district talk to me about climate change. They talk about global problems, but they don't talk about sanctioning the ICC. But Republicans think this is so very important, such an emergency, that we have to debate it during the first week of Congress. During Jimmy Carter's funeral, by the way, which is offensive considering his record on actually standing up for human rights, which is the opposite of what this bill does. No, don't worry about climate change, America, because the Republicans are going to sanction the janitors at the ICC. And while they're at it, they're going to rename the Gulf of Mexico. That's really going to help people pay bills and keep the lights on. All I can say, Mr. Speaker, is that this is not what America voted for. This Republican majority is not what people asked for in the last election. Maybe that's why Republicans lost multiple seats, because they keep bringing up lousy bills like this one. Nonetheless, let's talk about the matter at hand. Mr. Speaker, on October 7th, the October 7th terror attacks, Mr. Speaker, were unconscionable and unacceptable. The victims on that dark day were overwhelmingly civilians, 62 of whom are still being held illegally as hostages in unknown circumstances. And I would hope that every single member of this chamber would demand their immediate and unconditional release. It was an attack, I think, that rises to the level of war crimes and crimes against humanity. That is the reason that the International Criminal Court applied for arrest warrants against 3 Hamas leaders in May of 2024. Now, no one seemed to criticize the ICC for that decision. But now, Republicans want to sanction the ICC simply because they don't want the rules to apply to everyone. And I want to be very clear here, Mr. Speaker. Prime Minister Netanyahu has an absolute right to defend his people. But there is no international right to vengeance. And what we are seeing in Gaza is vengeance. I mean, where is our humanity? Have we just given up on the idea of human rights? At least 45,000 people have been killed in the war in Gaza, and I fear that number is much higher. 85% of the people there have been forcibly displaced, often repeatedly. Last September, a group of physicians estimated 62,000 had died of starvation. Hospitals, schools, mosques, churches, libraries, all destroyed. Food isn't getting in. Water is not getting in. Medicine is not getting in. And people are dying. Children are dying. Babies are dying. Some of them from the bombs, some from starvation, some from the cold. And the war has not shrunk. It expanded to Lebanon, where I hope the recent truce continues to hold. Mr. Speaker, I have sharply critiqued my own government for our conduct when we have been at war, because right is right and wrong is wrong, no matter what side you're on. And what is going on in Gaza right now is wrong. And I especially call it out because if we stand for freedom and human rights, then we need to stand for freedom and human rights all the time, not just when it's convenient. That's why the nations of the world set up the International Criminal Court in the first place. This is an institution designed to make sure the horrors that we saw all too often in the 20th century do not repeat themselves in the 21st century. We have international humanitarian law to prevent this kind and this scale of destruction. And just because someone doesn't like the law doesn't mean they get to break the law. As a court of last resort, the ICC can only become involved when and where a country has demonstrated unwillingness or inability to hold people to account for crimes within the ICC's jurisdiction. When the warrants were issued, the ICC appealed to the Israeli courts to take up and investigate these charges under their own jurisdiction. There's still time for the Israeli courts to do that. In fact, my understanding is that the Israeli government is appealing these arrest warrants at the ICC. Ironically, these sanctions could actually undermine those efforts. Mr. Speaker, I want the United States and Israel to have an amazing relationship and friendship. But friendship means we tell the truth. It means we hold ourselves and our allies to the same high standards. And I understand why people want vengeance. I've been to the region that Hamas attacked. I've met with the families of hostages and the victims of October 7th, whose lives have been destroyed by what happened. Many, by the way, who are furious at Prime Minister Netanyahu for the way he has conducted this war and for his failure to bring home their loved ones. I have met with people in my district who have been deeply impacted by this horrific tragedy, including too many who are justifiably afraid about the rise of anti-Semitism in this country and around the world. And the overwhelming majority of this Congress, Mr. Speaker, has voted to support basically unlimited military assistance and offensive weapons to Mr. Netanyahu. But even if someone approves of that military assistance, they should vote against this bill. You know, I've long considered myself a friend of Israel. I've traveled there. I believe Israelis deserve security, they deserve peace, they deserve safety. But turning a blind eye to what is happening in Gaza and saying that all these civilian casualties are somehow okay, in my opinion, does not make Israel more safe. It makes Israel less safe, less secure. Sanctioning and attacking the ICC is not only bad for Israel, my colleagues, it's bad for the United States. It's bad for the world. So I urge a no vote on this bill, and I reserve my time.
The gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. The gentleman from Florida.